you ever wondered what life was really like thousands of years ago? What people believed? How they worshipped? What questions kept them awake at night? It turns out, one of the greatest discoveries of the 20th century cracked that mystery wide open. The Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of fragile, ancient manuscripts, give us a front row seat to the beliefs, struggles, and hopes of Jewish communities who lived over 2 millennia ago. And what makes them even more fascinating is how these scrolls not only shine a light on the origins of Judaism, but also reveal crucial context for the birth of Christianity. In this video, we're going to dive deep into these remarkable texts, where they came from, what they say, and why they still matter so profoundly today. So settle in, because we're about to travel back thousands of years to unlock secrets that have shaped the very foundations of Western spirituality. A treasure trove of ancient wisdom. Let's start with the basics. What exactly are the Dead Sea Scrolls? In simple terms, they are a vast collection of ancient Jewish texts that were discovered by sheer accident. In the mid-20th century, Bedouin shepherds stumbled upon clay jars hidden inside caves near Qumran, close to the Dead Sea, and inside these jars were scrolls that had been untouched for nearly 2,000 years. Imagine opening a container and finding writings older than most nations that exist today. These scrolls include biblical manuscripts, some of the oldest copies of the Hebrew Bible we've ever found, but they also contain hymns, community rules, prophetic writings, and commentaries that give us an unparalleled window into how Jewish groups of that era understood their world and their God. They don't just tell us about religion, they also give us glimpses into the daily lives, social structures, and cultural tensions of ancient Judea, unveiling ancient secrets. So what kind of secrets do these scrolls reveal? For starters, they show us how Jewish religious thought was evolving at that time. The scrolls include different interpretations of the Hebrew scriptures, revealing debates and diverse theological ideas. It is like peeking into a long-running conversation that was shaping the spiritual landscape, discussions that would eventually set the stage for new movements, including Christianity. Some scrolls even predict a coming Messiah or describe an apocalyptic struggle between forces of light and darkness. When you read these, you start to understand the environment into which Jesus was born, a world already buzzing with expectations of divine intervention and redemption. The scrolls also challenge some traditional interpretations of biblical texts. They show us that what later became orthodox wasn't always the only viewpoint. Instead, there was a rich, sometimes conflicting tapestry of beliefs, rules, and hopes being worked out in real time. That alone has huge implications for how we read both the Old and New Testaments today. The significance of the scrolls. So why are the Dead Sea Scrolls such a big deal? Beyond just being old pieces of parchment, because they're a testament to the enduring power of written words. These texts survived centuries of war, empire collapses, natural decay, all because someone believed they were important enough to carefully write down and hide away. For scholars, they're an absolute gold mine. They allow experts to study ancient Hebrew and Aramaic, compare textual differences, and piece together how sacred writings evolved. Without the scrolls, we'd have a far less detailed picture of how Jewish scripture was transmitted and interpreted. But it's not just about academic curiosity. These scrolls give us something deeply human, a connection to people long gone who wrestled with the same big questions we do today about meaning, morality, divine justice, and hope. In part two, we'll explore how the Dead Sea Scrolls have been preserved and studied in modern times, the groundbreaking technology used to unlock even more of their secrets, and the debates they continue to spark in religious and academic circles. The modern quest to decipher the scrolls, alright. So we've uncovered why the Dead Sea Scrolls matter historically and spiritually. But how exactly have scholars managed to study these fragile, ancient texts without destroying them? It's actually one of the coolest intersections of archaeology, technology, and sheer human patience you'll ever see. When the scrolls were first found, many were in surprisingly good shape, carefully rolled and sealed in jars that protected them from the brutal desert air. But others, they were literally piles of tiny fragments, some no bigger than a fingernail, brittle and darkened with age. Imagine trying to assemble a 2,000-year-old jigsaw puzzle where many of the pieces are missing, and the pieces that do exist are written in ancient Hebrew or Aramaic script. That's what scholars faced. Teams of experts spent decades painstakingly matching handwriting, styles, ink compositions, and even the weave of the parchment to piece these texts back together. The role of modern technology, but the real breakthroughs started to come when technology stepped in. Using infrared photography, researchers could suddenly read faded letters invisible to the naked eye. What looked like blank scraps turned out to be covered in writing. Entire lines of lost prayers and commentaries sprang back to life under the new lenses. Then came even more advanced tools. Scientists used multispectral imaging, basically taking photos under many different wavelengths of light to reveal hidden layers of text. In some cases, these techniques uncovered palimpsests, where older writings had been scraped off and overwritten. Those ghost words could still be recovered. And recently, computer algorithms and AI have begun to help scholars cluster fragments by handwriting analysis, suggesting which pieces were likely penned by the same scribe. It's like letting a superpowered detective comb through thousands of tiny clues to rebuild entire scrolls. All of this has dramatically accelerated our understanding of the scrolls. What would have taken human eyes alone centuries to sort through is now being tackled in just a few years. Controversy and deep questions, but here is something you might find especially intriguing. The Dead Sea Scrolls don't just provide historical facts, they raise big, often unsettling questions. For one, they show that ancient Judaism was far from monolithic. The sect that lived at Qumran, many scholars believe they were Essenes, practiced rituals and held beliefs that differed significantly from mainstream temple Judaism of their day. Some texts found in the caves include rules about extreme purity practices, elaborate community, covenants, and vivid end times prophecies that read like something out of an apocalyptic thriller. For modern readers, this means rethinking assumptions about what Jewish tradition looked like in the centuries leading up to Jesus. The scrolls reveal a diversity of thought that challenges neat, simple narratives, and that stirs up debates. Religious communities sometimes wrestle with how these discoveries fit with established teachings. Meanwhile, secular historians see them as proof of just how dynamic and evolving spiritual life was back then. Why this still resonates today, so why should any of this matter to us, sitting here thousands of years later with smartphones in our pockets and problems that seem a world away from ancient Judea? Because these scrolls are more than relics. Their voice is across time. They capture the fears, hopes, debates, and dreams of real people. People who sat under the same stars we do, who wondered about justice and suffering, who longed for redemption. They remind us that the big questions we wrestle with today aren't new. Humans have always sought meaning, worried over the state of the world, and tried to understand their place in something bigger. It is both humbling and strangely comforting to realize we were a part of that same timeless quest. In Part 3, we'll explore some of the most profound passages from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Look at how they've influenced not only biblical studies, but also modern philosophy and ethics, and wrap up with personal reflections on why these ancient texts still touch hearts today. Diving into the texts themselves, alright, let's get to the heart of this, the words themselves. Because for all the scholarly debates and dazzling technology, what truly matters is what these scrolls actually say. They're not just dry historical records. Many of the passages found among the Dead Sea Scrolls are deeply moving songs, prayers, meditations, and warnings that still resonate today. Take the Thanksgiving hymns, for example. These are psalm-like compositions, pouring out gratitude for divine deliverance, written by someone who clearly felt intensely close to God. They speak of being rescued from deep pits of despair, of finding hope when everything seemed lost. Then there are the War Scrolls, vivid apocalyptic visions that describe a final cosmic battle between the forces of light and darkness. They might seem strange at first, almost fantastical, but look closer. They reflect the community living under constant threat, yearning for a day where justice would finally triumph over oppression. And perhaps most haunting are the community rules. Strict codes governing everything from ritual purity to shared meals, painting a picture of people desperately trying to live out a life they believed was wholly set apart, even as the wider world seemed to teeter on chaos. Impact on scripture and philosophy. So how have these texts shaped our modern world? In biblical studies, they've been nothing short of revolutionary. The Dead Sea Scrolls have helped scholars understand how the Hebrew Bible was transmitted and edited over centuries. They've confirmed the astonishing accuracy of many passages, showing, for instance, that the book of Isaiah in the scrolls is nearly identical to the version still read today. That's over 2,000 years of remarkably careful copying. At the same time, the scrolls highlight alternative readings and interpretations that didn't become part of later canonical traditions. They show how dynamic and debated spiritual life was back then, full of communities grappling with questions of purity, prophecy, and the nearness of God. Beyond theology, philosophers and ethicists have mined these texts for insights into human nature, the Qumran community's obsession with moral discipline, their raw cries for justice, and their hope in ultimate redemption still spark conversations about what it means to live a meaningful life under imperfect conditions. Why these ancient voices still matter, but maybe the most powerful impact is far simpler. These writings, fragile scraps of parchment from caves in a barren desert, connect us to people who lived thousands of years ago yet worried, dreamed, and wrestled with life just like we do. They feared war, mourned corruption, hoped for mercy, sought community, and longed for the world to be made right. In their words, we see reflections of our own struggles, our doubts, our small triumphs, our fragile faith, and that might be the deepest reason why the Dead Sea Scrolls continue to capture imaginations worldwide. They remind us that we're part of a vast human story, stretching across generations and cultures, all asking the same essential questions about why we're here and what it all means. The invitation to reflect and discuss. So here's what I'd love to know from you. Which part of this journey stood out most? Was it the idea of ancient communities hiding their deepest beliefs in caves, hoping someone, maybe us, would one day read them? Or the striking realization that the same questions they ask still echo in our own hearts? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if you found this exploration meaningful, consider subscribing. We dive into the hidden stories, overlooked texts, and timeless ideas that continue to shape how we live and think, even thousands of years later. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, we're all connected by questions that have no expiration date. Questions about justice, hope, belonging, and the mystery of being alive. See you in the next video.